Hello, everybody. My name is Jacob Wilson, and this is the special focus report that I did on Athabascans and their personal insecurities. Why I chose Athabascans and their background. So, I chose Athabascans because we are in interior Alaska, which is where they are located. They have 11 different languages, and their name means grass here and there. It was given by the Cree Indians who lived east of Athabasca Lake, which is in Canada. They are by they're just normally hunter, gatherer, and fishers, and they have lived in groups, but they come in together for certain events, like the summer fish camp. So they don't live together as one big tribe; they're separated for most of the time. Um, They also share the animistic belief that all creatures and some inanimate objects had spirits which were active and powerful components of those creatures. So they just believe that most or all creatures and some objects have a spirit in them. And so they have to do certain things in order to hunt the animal and after they're done hunting the animal in order to appease the spirit. They have been in Alaska for thousands of years, and they were one of the first people to come across the Bering Land Bridge. The definition of personal security that I'm using for this whole assignment is the legal and uninterrupted enjoyment by a man of his life, his body, his health, and his reputation. And of course, it's not just men, women as well. The five metrics of personal security that I am using in this paper was the sexual violence against Athabascan men and women, the physical violence against Athabascan men and women, the violence against Athabascan children, how violence shapes the outlook of any Athabascan and their future, and how tribal leaders and chiefs protect their people. So starting with sexual violence against Athabascan men and women, 56.1% of Native women have experienced sexual violence. Compare that to the 27.5% of Native men who experience sexual violence. These are all higher numbers than all other ethnicities, and it's pretty scary to be honest to see that. Until 2013, there was no way to prosecute a non-Indian offender in an Indian country, and they made changes. This was they changed the change they made was in the Violence Against Women Act. Basically, a non-Indian could come into Athabascan territory, commit a crime, and then just leave because there was no way to prosecute. And that does include crimes such as rape and any other sexual assault. Still, sexual assault, even after this, must fall into the context of domestic violence, dating violence, or violation of a protection order in order to prosecute. That means that if it doesn't fall into one of these three categories, the tribal council will not prosecute it, which kind of sucks, but that's why they made the changes so that way you can take your case outside of tribal or outside of the tribal council. Um, and I do believe that alcohol is the main root cause for a lot of the sexual violence that you see inside of the reservation, and also could be the violence that is against Athabascan men and women outside the reservation, just because alcohol is a natural inhibitor and makes you, doesn't make you, but you are more likely to do impulsive actions that you would rather not do normally. Physical violence against Athabascan men and women. So 63.7% of Athabascan women deal with intimate partner violence. The average for all Native women is 55.5%. That is a huge percent difference. It may not seem like that, but that's a huge difference because it's already the average for Native women is already so much higher than that of any other ethnicity. And 78% of the perpetrators will likely have alcohol in their system. That is just it was in the study that is cited at the end of the source or the end of this presentation, and it shows that yeah, about 80% of the people have alcohol in their system. Um, Having a child increases the likelihood of spousal abuse. That's also in the same study. It shows that it's two-thirds of the people that had dealing with spousal abuse had a child. So it just they correlated that having a child also increased the likelihood, maybe due to just the stress of having another person running around the house. And once again, I think that alcohol was the root cause. Obviously, since 80% of perpetrators have alcohol in their system, it is the main reason why violence exists, or just physical violence exists in the Athabascan culture. Violence against Athabascan children. 17.3% of Alaska child population. That is basically meaning Athabascans are 17.3% of Alaska's child population. Now look at 62.3% of all Athabascan, or of all children in an out of home placement are Athabascan. So they're not even a fifth of the child population, but they make up more than half of the out of home placement population, which is pretty crazy. They do get taken away often, and because they witness a lot of violence between their parents. They also uh, get abused themselves. If you see violence against, your child, you see violence against your mom, it's pretty likely that eventually you're going to see violence against you. Um, and they also, because they grow up in that environment, they will learn that the violence is normal. And then they will continue the cycle with their family when they grow up. I would say the root cause of this is a cycle of abuse that started with the previous generation of the child and then will continue through them and so forth until someone comes along and breaks it. But then someone else can come along and break a good cycle, and then it just keeps coming and going. How violence shapes the outlook of the future for Athabascans. It leads children to question their culture. When they see all this violence in their culture and they don't see as much violence in, say, another culture, they begin to question why would they even stay in such a violent culture when this other one seems nicer. It also leads to confusion, depression, and increased substance abuse. There was a study that showed that when natives start to question their culture, they start to become more confused, more depressed. And because of their confusion and depression, they don't know what to do, so they start doing drugs, they start drinking heavily because they just don't want to think about it anymore and they want everything to go away. And this also shows a higher dropout rate than all other ethnicities. Alaskans have I think they have a higher dropout rate than average than the natives, just due probably to this question of their culture. And the elders of their tribe do blame a loss of culture for this increase in violence. So obviously they understand that it is an issue, and they're trying to change that. And just like the elders saw it, I think the root cause seems to be a loss of culture. If you lose what you stand for, then it could change a lot about you and make you go into a route that you were not meant to. How tribal leaders and their chiefs protect their people. Well, elders, they start by teaching the culture to the youth. They teach kids, they tell stories, they teach them about their animistic belief system and how to understand it, how to honor it, and all that good stuff. But elders play a main role in teaching the youth, and the elders and chiefs helped get the Violence Against Women Act to make the change in 2013 because they felt that they couldn't do anything to protect their people, so they tried to get a change, and they were able to add this extra element to the act, even though there's still huge issues with it, like I discussed before. And they started the Tanana Chiefs Conference, which is basically all of the Athabascan chiefs. They get together and they have this conference and they try to make changes and laws and try to institute things that better their people. And they also, all of them sit on the judgment courts to judge crimes like the tribal courts. And that is, one of their main duties is to dictate the punishment. And they can either make a good judging call or they can make a bad judging call, which can, release someone into the community that is not right or not fit to be there. Their needs, vulnerabilities, and capacities. I think their needs for all Athabascans is better protection of all Athabascans from violent crimes. They also need more education on the negatives of substances and other alternatives to them, like something else that they could do besides use of substances. They need better role models for the kids to change the cycle of abuse. It's a very hard cycle to stop, but I'm sure they can figure something out. Vulnerabilities. There are no laws protecting them from certain crimes. So they're vulnerable to certain crimes, and if people do that, they could come take advantage of it. And wanting substances to dealing with their problems. Just like every culture out there and every race, substances are a way to escape your issues and escape your problems, and they're no different. They're still vulnerable to them. Capacities. They're given subsidies from the government. So, I mean, they're given some money from the government, they're given some perks from the government, but they're not really given any help for anything else. And they have to rely on only the elders and chiefs to make the decision for the good of the Athabascans. So, until you become an elder or you're elected chief, you kind of have no say in the matter. You can elect the chief, but that's about it. And strategies that I think could help. Uh, I think that all you can really do is add some education programs on violence and how to help prevent it. You just got to make people more aware of what's going on. If maybe you're talking to someone that is an abuser, uh, then maybe they could learn and stop doing it and learn what they're doing to their families and start thinking more for their families instead of just themselves. You can also have education on the negatives of substance abuse. I mean, the more you get it out there, people think that if you tell people about it, then they're going to want to do it. But the more you get it out there, the more bad stuff that people learn, the more likely it is that they won't do it. Um, but getting the tribes to push more Athabascan culture on the youth to bring them back. You gotta get them back to where they were, get them back to the basics. Um, and getting the tribal council to create more protective laws and regulations for the safety of all Athabascans. Uh, there's a lot of issues and a lot of holes in their laws, and it lets people get away with a lot of things that they shouldn't be getting away with. They would not be getting away with in the United States government. So there are a lot of issues, and there's a reason for a lot of this violence and why it is not hold here. And that is it. This is my works cited of all the sources I got to use. As all folks, thanks for listening to, I think, the last presentation.